I lent my parents $9,000. 8 months later, they had no memory of it being a loan. When I brought it up calmly, they called me greedy. Then they called my grandmother. Posted to r/true off my chest. The word temporary did a lot of work in my family for a long time. Temporary meant, we need something and you have it, and we will return it when we are back on our feet. Temporary was the frame that made the asking reasonable, that separated a loan from a gift, that allowed both parties to preserve their dignity, my parents because they were not asking for a handout, me because I was helping family through a difficult moment rather than watching resources leave my account permanently. Temporary, in practice, had a very loose relationship with time. I am going to tell you about the $9,000. Not because $9,000 is a number that requires an audience. It is a significant amount to me and a different amount to other people, and I am not here to argue about the significance. I am going to tell you about it because what happened when I asked for it back revealed something about my family that I had been half knowing for years, and the revealing and the word they used when I brought it up changed the way I understand my own history. My name is Isaiah. I am 29 years old. My parents are Curtis and Yvonne, and they are in their late 50s, and they're the kind of parents who are loving and present and who also, across my entire adult life, have operated with a specific and consistent assumption that my resources are available to them in ways that theirs are not available to me. I want to be precise about what I mean by that because imprecision is how this dynamic survives examination. I do not mean they never helped me. They did, in childhood, in the ways that parents help children: housing, food, school supplies, the ordinary infrastructure of being raised. What I mean is that in my adult life, the financial direction has been consistently one way. From me, toward them. Not always in large amounts. Not always dramatically. But reliably, in a current that I had come to regard as the natural order of things until I stopped regarding it as the natural order of things and started regarding it as a pattern. The $9,000 was not the first instance of the pattern. It was the largest. The ask came in March. My father called on a Tuesday evening and said there was a situation. The situation was that they had a gap, a real gap, he said, a temporary gap, between a payment that was due and the money that would be available when his next client invoice cleared. He worked as an independent contractor in facilities management, and his income was genuinely uneven, genuinely dependent on invoice timing, genuinely capable of producing gaps. I understood this. I had understood it many times before in smaller configurations. He said 8 or 9,000 would cover what they needed. He said he expected the invoice to clear within 6 weeks. He said 6 weeks at the absolute outside, probably sooner. I had the money. I had it because I had been saving it carefully toward a specific purpose, a course certification that would advance my career in a meaningful way, something I had been building toward for over a year. I had not yet spent it. I had $9,200 in a savings account with a clear intention attached to it. I said yes. I said yes because he was my father, and the gap was real, and 6 weeks is not long, and temporary means it comes back. I transferred the money that Thursday. I did not ask for a written agreement. I want to be honest about this because it is relevant and because the absence of paper is the thing that people will point to, and I am acknowledging it first. I did not ask for a written agreement because asking for a written agreement from your parents is the kind of thing that changes the temperature of a relationship in ways I was not prepared to change it, and because temporary meant 6 weeks, and 6 weeks is short enough that a written agreement seemed like distrust dressed as prudence. That was a choice I made. I am accounting for it. 6 weeks passed. I did not say anything at 6 weeks because the invoice had apparently been delayed, and my father had mentioned it in passing without mentioning the 9,000, and I had not wanted to be the one to bring it up first, which is a position I recognize now as the position of someone who has learned that asking for what they are owed puts them in the wrong before they have said a word. 8 weeks passed. 10 weeks. 12. In month 4, I began paying the monthly installment for my certification course on a credit card because I had redirected the savings and the credit card was the only available mechanism, and I told myself I would pay it off when the money came back, which it would, because temporary. In month 5, my parents came to visit for a weekend, and we had a good visit, genuinely good, the kind of visit where everyone is easy with each other, and the food is good, and my mother compliments my apartment, and my father and I watch a game together, and nothing is wrong on the surface of anything. The 9,000 was not mentioned. I did not mention it either. I am telling you this not to excuse what happened later, but to describe the full texture of the dynamic. The way that asking for what you are owed in a family, where asking puts you in the wrong, trains you to not ask, to wait, to maintain the surface because the surface is the only place where everyone is comfortable. In month 7, I ran the credit card balance calculation. I had been paying minimums. The interest was accumulating. The certification was paid for, but the $9,000 hole it was supposed to fill was not filled, and the interest on the card was becoming its own separate problem. In month 8, I decided to bring it up. I want to tell you how I brought it up, because the how matters for the word they used afterward. I called my father on a Sunday afternoon. Not a tense call, not a confrontational call. I said I wanted to touch base about the loan from March. I said I understood that invoice timing was unpredictable and I wasn't calling to create pressure. I just wanted to understand the current timeline so I could manage my own finances accordingly. I said it calmly. I said it in the tone of an adult having a reasonable conversation with another adult about a financial arrangement they had both agreed to. My father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What loan?" I said, "The $9,000 I transferred in March. You said it was temporary, for the invoice gap." He said, "Isaiah, that wasn't a loan. You gave us that money." I want to stay in that moment because I think it deserves full attention. That wasn't a loan. You gave us that money. Not, I thought it was a gift. Not, I must have misunderstood. Not even a version of events that acknowledged uncertainty about what had been agreed. A flat revision of what had happened, delivered with the confidence of someone who has decided on their version and is not interested in evidence to the contrary. I said, "Dad, you called me and said you needed money temporarily. You said 6 weeks. I transferred it as a loan. We both understood it as a loan." He said, "I don't remember it that way." I said, "What way do you remember it?" He said, "You offered. You said you wanted to help." I sat with that for a moment. I had not offered. He had asked. The call had been on a Tuesday evening, and he had said there was a situation, and he had named the amount, and I had said yes. That was the sequence. The sequence did not have a version in which I had volunteered. I said, still calmly, "I don't think that's what happened." He said, "I think you need to think about what family means." I said, "I think family means people keep their word." He said, "You're being greedy about this." Greedy. That word. I have been sitting with it for 2 months, and I want to tell you what I found when I sat with it. Greedy means wanting more than your fair share. Greedy means prioritizing your own gain over others' need. Greedy means the money is not rightfully yours to want back. What my father did by using that word was not describe my behavior. He redefined the transaction retroactively. He took a loan, converted it in the retelling to a gift, and then applied a moral judgment to my refusal to accept the conversion. If I had given the money freely, then asking for it back was greedy. The word only works if you accept the revised version of events. The word was not a description. It was a move. I recognized the move because I had seen versions of it before, smaller versions, across years of a dynamic in which my resources were treated as available and my asking for anything in return was framed as a failure of character or family feeling. The word was just the largest version of something I had been receiving in smaller denominations my whole adult life. I said, "I'm not being greedy. I'm asking for the return of money I lent you under an explicit agreement. Those are different things." He said he needed to talk to my mother and would call me back. He did not call me back. My mother called me that evening, in the tone she uses when she has been briefed on a situation and has agreed on a position. She said she was surprised at me. She said she didn't raise me to treat family like a bank. She said money should not come between us. I said, "Money is between us because $9,000 of mine is in your account." She said she was going to call Grandma. My grandmother's name is Louise, and she is 74, and she is the family's highest court. When my mother said she was going to call Grandma, she meant she was escalating to the person whose judgment everyone defers to, the person whose opinion would be delivered to me as verdict. Grandma called me the next day. I want to tell you what she said, because it was not what I expected. She said, Your mother called me. I said, I figured. She said, she told me her version. I said, I have a version too. She said, I know you do. Tell me. So I told her. The Tuesday call. The specific amount. The explicit word temporary. The 6 weeks. The 8 months. The Sunday phone call, and the word my father had used. She was quiet for a moment. She said, Did you have it in writing? I said, No. She said, That's going to make it hard. I said, I know. She said, Do you have the transfer record? I said, Yes. Bank statement. The amount, the date. She said, That shows you gave them money. It doesn't show the terms. I said, I know. She was quiet again. Then she said, Isaiah, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to hear it as the truth and not as me taking sides. I said, okay. She said, Your parents have always been a little loose about money that comes from you. I've seen it. I've thought about saying something for a long time, and I haven't because it wasn't my place. But I want you to know that I believe you. I believe it was a loan, and I believe you deserve it back. I said, What do I do? She said, I don't know if you'll get the money back, baby. I wish I could tell you different. What I can tell you is that you were not wrong to ask. Being called greedy for asking for what you're owed is not something you have to accept. I said, They'll be angry for a long time. She said, Probably. She said, Is the anger going to change what's true? I said, No. She said, Then you know where you stand. That conversation was 6 weeks ago. Here is where things are. My parents have not repaid the money. I do not expect they will, not quickly, possibly not at all. I have accepted that possibility not with peace exactly, but with the clarity of someone who has done the accounting and decided to stop deferring the clarity. The $9,000 was the cost of finally seeing the pattern clearly. That is not a fair price. It is the price. I have stopped being available as a financial resource for my parents in the open-ended way I had been available before. Not a dramatic announcement, not a confrontation. Just a quiet change in my own practice. When there is a next time, and I do not doubt there will be a next time, my answer will be different. Not because I do not love them, because I have finally understood that love and unlimited financial availability are not the same thing, and that conflating them has served one party in this dynamic and not the other. My relationship with my parents is strained. My mother is cool on our calls. My father has not mentioned the money again, which is its own kind of position. I am not sure what the relationship looks like long-term. I am sitting with that uncertainty without trying to resolve it prematurely. My grandmother and I have talked twice more since her call. She asked about the certification course, which I told her I had completed. She said she was proud of me. She said it without a but. I have been thinking about that. About what it means to be told you are doing well without the immediate arrival of a qualifier. It is a small thing. It has stayed with me for weeks. I paid off the credit card last month. The balance is zero. The certification is done. The $9,000 is gone in the sense that I have stopped waiting for it and started treating it as the price of information. The information is this. I know now what temporary means in my family. I know now what greedy means when they say it. I know now the difference between helping and being available to be helped from indefinitely, and I know which one I had been doing and which one I am going to do from here. That knowledge cost $9,000. I am done paying for it. Edit. My grandmother sent me a card last week. Just a card, no occasion. Inside she had written, You are not wrong to ask. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I have it on my desk. It is doing a lot of work for a small piece of paper.